Okay, so good evening, everyone. Please, you're welcome to HOMT 611, Events Management. My name is Dr. Sheena Boateng, and I'll be your facilitator for the course. So, last week we talked about an introduction to events management. I think the last time we met, I think it wasn't last week, it was, I think, 2 weeks ago. Yes. So we will continue from where we left off, and today we will be talking about creating and designing events. Now, why creating and designing events? Creating and designing events in the sense that in Ghana here, we are very used to people who are event organizers, but that is just one aspect of events management. Event organizers are the people who usually come in when someone has already developed their idea, know what they want to do, and then they just need somebody to handle the execution. But as events management students, you are being trained not to be event organizers, but to be event professionals. To the end that as an event professional, you can independently even sit down in your house, think up an idea, and turn it into an event that will generate income for you and your partners, if there's anyone that you partnered with to come up with the event, or for whatever organization that you are currently working for. So as an event professional, being able to create and design events is an integral part of your training in event management. And that is what we are going to do today. So as usual, by the end of the session, there are certain outcomes that we hope to have achieved. The first one is that you will understand the process of idea generation. Secondly, to be able to describe the process of creating and designing an event, and then developing key outcome appraisal tools. Also, you'll be able to understand the basis of stakeholder relationships and develop approaches to build alignment around shared aspirations between yourself as the event professional in the capacity of creator and designer and the stakeholders that you are working with. And then finally, you'll be able to develop basic concept design processes for a range of events. So these are the learning outcomes you hope to achieve. Before we go ahead, does anyone have something you want to ask or anything you need clarification on before we dive right into it? Then I presume everyone is okay.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
All right, then let's proceed. So creating and designing events, like I said, is a core part of events management, which is a task undertaken by who we will henceforth refer to in this course as event professionals. So currently I'm considering all of you as event professionals. Now, an event professional doesn't have to be somebody who owns an event organizing company or an event planning company. An event professional is basically somebody who has skills in the creation and designing of events, the planning of events, and the execution of events. So, like I said earlier, as an event professional, you should not only specialize in organizing other people's events that they have conceptualized and thought of and designed. You should also be able to independently sit down and think up ideas and concepts and then take them through the creation and design process to come up with concrete events that can end up becoming perhaps sources of revenue or yielding certain specific outcomes or objectives, depending on the capacity in which you are doing it. So any event at all that we see around us, apart from the traditional events that we experience as a result of ritual and ceremonies, like most of the traditional festivals we have that date back to our ancestors, and the weddings and the funerals that date back to a long time in history. Almost all the other events that we see around us are as a result of this process of creation and design. And that is what we are going to delve into today. Now, the event creation and design process starts from the point that we refer to as idea generation. Almost every single event we see around us, apart from, like I said, the ones that are based on ritual and ceremony, came about as a result of a seed idea that someone had. We can speak of every event from Adom Praise, Chalewote Festival, Accra Street Carnival, Adom Praise, any of the events that we see around us. They are all as a result of some seed idea that someone had and decided to run with it and create something unique. So what is idea generation? We are saying that idea generation is the process that precedes the creating and designing of an event. Because without an idea, there's nothing to create and design. So idea generation is an important part of the entire process of creating and designing an event. Now, Yeoman et al. 2004 notes that the idea for an event can be generated by the event professional, in this case, you students taking this course, and can also equally come from an external catalyst. So, for instance, you can be sitting down watching TV, and then, like recently, they are talking about all these racist attacks and police brutality in the US. And then out of nowhere, someone sat in his house and thought that, okay, the protesters are protesting in the US, and we are also Black people. So why don't we also protest in Ghana here? And overnight, the person was able to organize people, set up the event, plan it, where they will meet, where they will process through, get flyers and everything. And then bam, they had an event where they were going to protest. Unfortunately, the Ghana police had to put a stop to it because they had not given them the go-ahead to actually have the protest, and they went ahead to have it. That is an example of an event that came about as a result of an external catalyst. The person had not really thought about it, but something happening somewhere else triggered the idea of having that event. We can also talk about things like public sector. I remember during the period where the government of Ghana won the bid to organize the Can 2008 or whichever one they most recently organized. A lot of people had ideas of events that sprang up. So around that time that the games were taken on, during the daytime, people would watch the matches. And in the evenings, there were a lot of peripheral activities that people were organizing in the form of events to be able to entertain all the tourists that were coming into the country. And that again is an example of an external catalyst that can trigger the generation for an idea of an event, right? Ghana versus Niger, another trigger. It was an external catalyst because at some point there was a lot of discourse in the media about how Nigerian music is better than Ghanaian music, and Nigerian artists are doing better than Ghanaian artists. And someone sat in his house and was like, well, since you people are saying this, let's put it to the test and actually put them together in a battle. And hence Ghana versus Niger was born. So you realize that all the events around us, apart from, like I said, the ones based on ritual and ceremony, we can trace back to some kind of seed idea that fell in the mind of perhaps an event professional or an individual who was triggered by some kind of external catalyst to form the event. So what we are saying is that idea generation can take the following forms. First of all, it can be an original idea. Like I said, Ghana versus Niger came about as a result of an original idea from an individual who was sitting down in his house listening to the back and forth on Twitter and Facebook about how Nigerian artists are doing better than Ghanaian artists, and Ghanaian artists can't match them and all that. The person just decided to introduce something new into the market, being Ghana versus Niger, going off of that external catalyst. And it became a huge success that they are still hosting to date, right? Apart from an original idea, we can also talk about a special request or commission. Like I said, there's no event that is being organized that is not as a result of someone's idea. And it is not all the time that the idea will be original from the event professional or from the owner of the event. Whoever is organizing the event may not necessarily have to own it. It may be as a result of someone else, a third party, commissioning the event professional or the one who is in charge of the event or the project manager to set up the event. So here we are saying a specific request or commission responding to a prescribed brief to deliver a set event with a given theme at a particular time. So the German embassy can decide to call an event professional and say, we are celebrating our Independence Day. And during the German embassy, we want to have an event to commemorate it in Ghana, even though it is being celebrated in Germany. So come up with an idea for an event that we can organize to commemorate the day. This is a special example. This is an example of a specific request for commission that a third party can give to an event professional to come up with ideas for an event. And as we will learn very soon, these ideas can take any way, manner, or form, depending on the level of creativity and ingenuity of the event professional or project manager who is put in charge of organizing this particular event. And then finally, we can talk about a regular calendar event that needs a fresh approach. Like I said, there are certain events that already have existed since the time of our mothers and grandmothers and ancestors, including funerals and weddings and festivals, right? And like we all agreed last week, the weddings of today are not like the weddings that we used to organize before. And it is as a result of this third form of idea generation, where a regular calendar event like weddings that have been taking place forever has been going through an evolution and always been given a fresh approach. So now comparing the weddings that are organized now to the weddings that were being organized, say 10, 15 years ago, are not the same. There are so many differences. So here we are saying that taking on the delivery of, say, a regular festival or a wedding, and then refreshing the event to have more modern characteristics and to reflect the trends of the time is another way by which someone can come up with ideas. I wish I could find the person who came up with the idea of every bride wearing heavily beaded kente. I will ask the person one question. Please, can anyone guess the question that I'll ask that person? Can anyone guess? This one should be like straightforward. Can anyone guess the question I'll ask that person? Because it's a question I know has been on plenty people's minds, but no one has wanted to ask. But me, I'll ask.
Madam, what was your question?
What will be my question?
No, I mean, what question did you ask right now?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that I want to find the person who said that the new trend is that all the brides who are getting married, their engagement, they should wear kente that has been heavily beaded. You see the beading and the embellishment and the plenty designs they put in the kente now. I want to ask that person one question. One pair. Who knows what that question is? Patricia, can you guess?
I'm guessing very well. Madam, will you ask after the engagement, where will they wear it to?
Bam! That's my number one question. Where will they wear it to? Where would they wear it to? In fact, Patricia, you've read my mind. There's another question too. A second one too. That I've also wanted to, apart from where would they wear it to, there's a second one. Patricia, can you guess that one too? Or Mercedes, Namumu? Can you guess the second question?
I was thinking why kente?
Exactly. Who said it's a rule? In fact, because of that, you know, I broke the rules. My engagement, I didn't wear kente.
Wow.
I was tired of it. I said, why should everybody wear? So I went to buy blue and white lace and I wore it. There's another question too that a friend of mine has been asking. That one I think is very funny, but it is a very important question. Who can guess that one? This one is a matter of utility. Who can guess that other question? Joanne, can you guess? Or Ruth? Can you guess the question?
No, please.
The last one. Oh, okay, Ruth, what about you? The last one, the last question. What do you think it is?
Maybe why they sell food.
The kente dress. The person who came up with the heavy beading. You know the question, the last question. Should I tell you?
Please do.
The question is, how would they wash it? because many people don't have washing machine. And I'm even told that you can't put it in a washing machine.
Yes, madam, after washing it, the whole bit move, everything.
Hey. And I'm told it's not cheap too. A lady told me that it costs anywhere from 10,000 Ghana and above. Hey, for one day. You can't wear it anywhere. You can't wash it. Hey. So these are my 3 questions, my sister. Don't I have a keys?
Yes, please, you do.
But these are all ideas that were generated by event professionals like yourselves. So it tells you how extreme the idea can go. As long as you as an event professional can sell it, People will buy into it and you will make money. Right now, those who do the bidding are making money. Those who sell the kente are making money. Those who do the sewing are making money.
And doctor, even the fan.
Thank you, the handheld fan. I don't even know where that one too came from. I'm told they are from China. Hey! And you will see someone holding the fan and she's fanning herself, and the hair is like 24 inches long. And she's sweating and the hair is sticking on her face and she's trying to fan. So why don't you use short hair if you know you will feel hot? I just don't understand. But these are all unique ways by which event professionals have added a fresh approach to something that was old. And because previously weddings were very boring. They were very short events that don't even span beyond 1 hour, 2 hours. The family meets, they exchange the items, they bring the woman out, they hand her over to the man, c'est fini. But now, weddings can range anywhere from, in fact, I've seen a 24-hour wedding before, where they started in the morning around 6 o'clock, they did engagement, wedding, everything the same day, and they did after party till the following morning around 3. So,
Madam, I've also witnessed some like that. In Kenya, yes.
So these are all ways by which event professionals like yourself are adding fresh things to old, boring events and make it, because now it's a money-making venture. So as an event professional, you start to make a lot of money. So you can have your day job and be an event management professional on the side. You'll be making a lot of money. So that is the concept of idea generation, right? So as an event professional, like I'm saying, you have to be creative and always think on your feet, because you have to come up with all these quick-witted, interesting ideas to make sure that you stay relevant. So once you generate the idea, you now have to create and design a whole event around it. So once you have the idea, the question now is, what can I create around this idea to form an event that people will want to attend, that people would want to pay money for? And that is where the creation and design process comes in. And there are 2 levels of the creation and design process. The first level is the creative lens, and the second level is the design lens. And we are going to break them all down right now. So let's start with the creative lens. Now, the business of creating an event matches artistic origination with design processes and strategy. So once you have artistically and creatively come up with the idea, you now have to design processes and strategies to create an event out of it. Now, according to Ritchie 2011, the best creations are compounds of ideas, meaning that the fact that you are the person who originated the idea does not mean that you have all the plans and the tips and the strategies to turn it into the event that it is supposed to be. You actually need to get other people's inputs who are equally as creative as you are to come up with interesting ideas to support you in turning your initial seed idea into a successful event. So here we are saying that you may have the original idea and we'll give you credit as the originator, but you need to also make room for other people or stakeholders or partners, or what we will refer to as collaborators, to come in and also give you inputs to turn the event into something big. You will realize that a number of the events that we have around, like Adom Praise, Ghana Meets Niger, Rapaholic, the Girl Talk Show, all these things were as a result of someone's seed idea. But the events that they became afterwards were as a result of the input of so many different people with so many different backgrounds and so many creative ideas. So with the creative lens, we are saying that you alone cannot be creative when it comes to designing an event. You need partners, you need collaborators. At least you need one partner or collaborator who can think as creatively as you and come up with something unique that will turn it into a great event. So whatever and wherever the idea came from, the process of creating the event will include a response from a range of key factors, right? And these create a filter through which your ideas can be viewed, tested, and developed Because like I said, if you alone come up with the idea and you are the only person who is supposed to design the strategies and processes to create the event, you will not be able to critique yourself. Every idea that you come up with will be the best idea to you. But once you are able to bring in other collaborators and partners, you can together sit down and screen the ideas and test them using the stages that we are going to discuss very soon, to see whether this idea that we have is good enough to turn into an actual event that will generate good returns for us as a team. And the three key elements of the creative lens that will help you to do this screening are, first of all, the purpose, secondly, the success factors, and then third, concept testing. We are going to take each of these one by one and explain them. Before I proceed, does anyone have anything they need clarification on or a question they want to ask? Okay. So these three factors that I mentioned, the purpose, the success factors, and the concept testing, together come about to represent the 3-point creative lens process that we are going to pass our idea through to make sure that it meets specific criteria to move on to the design phase. And by the time you finish going through these 3 stages, you need to be able to come up with what we call a theme for the event. That is why we have theme in the middle of the diagram, right at the nucleus, to show that these 3 things come together to determine the theme of the event. So let's take them one after the other. Let's first start with the purpose. And under the purpose, the question we are asking ourselves is, what is the rationale for this event? So in asking what the rationale for the event is, we are saying that the purpose that you are organizing the event should be clear, concise, and written down. Ah. Thank you, Ruth.
Welcome.
We are saying that the purpose for which you are organizing the event should be clear and written down. Because if you do not write it down, there's the likelihood that you may forget as the discussions go on and the ideas are thrown in and everybody's putting in their inputs and what they think and how they think you should go. You may forget about the seed idea. So the rationale here is that put down the purpose that you are organizing the event so that nobody forgets that. And then after you put down the purpose, come up with a mission and a vision statement for why you are organizing the event. And we see this with a lot of events that are put up in the news media and on television and on radio, advertising events that are up and coming. They'll usually tell you the mission of the event and why they are organizing the event, right? So here we are saying that the purpose that you are organizing the event doesn't have to be a long paragraph or a lengthy statement. It can be as succinct as one sentence. And here we have an example saying, for instance, the purpose of your event could be to raise the profile of local arts and artists, which is one of the main reasons why the Chaliwote Street Art Festival was started, right? Or if it is not enough to just sum everything up into just one sentence, you can decide to do it into one overarching sentence and then have sub-levels of objectives to break down the overarching sentence that you have put together. So by articulating the purpose in this manner, you have a good starting point on where to go in terms of developing ideas to turn whatever you have as a concept into a full-blown event. Now, when it comes to the purpose, a lot of events that we are seeing around us have various purposes and missions and visions for which they are being organized. The Chaliwote Festival is one of them. And it is organized by an organization called Accra.org. Now, if you give me a moment, I'll take you to their website to show you exactly what they do and how much intense their activities are. Please, can you see the web page now, the browser?
Yes, please.
Good.
Yes, please.
So this page is owned by Accra.org Radio. And they are a group of some of them are African Americans, some of them are Ghanaians. And they came together to try to promote arts in West Africa. So we see from the screen that they said they are, it started as a result of conversations with creatives and artists about how to build momentum for their work. So here, can we see the concept of idea generation at work? Can we see it?
Yes, please.
Okay, so in what form did the idea generation take based on what we are seeing? How did the idea come about? Ruth, can you help us? How do you think the idea for Accra.alt come about? Okay, so I'll give you a clue. Read the first sentence and then tell me what you find out from there.
Doc. Yes, I think creative art.
Yes, Gloria.
I think creative art.
Okay, but what did the creative artists do? From the sentence, what did it say they did? Okay. They began in 2009 with what?
Conversations.
Conversation.
And you remember in the idea generation phase, we said that when you come up with the idea, you need to share it with what? Collaborators. So that you guys can bounce ideas off of each other. And this is a prime example of how idea generation takes place. They came together, had conversations, bounced ideas off of each other, and came up with so many ways by which they could help up-and-coming artists to showcase their work, right? And based on that, they came up with a number of events. In fact, Chalewate is just one of the events.
Okay.
Chalewate is the one that they do in August, right, at Jamestown. Then they have another one called Sabulai Radio. It sounds interesting, doesn't it? So Sabulai Radio is a music festival. And that one is annual, just like the Chaliwate Street Art Festival. But that one is focused on music. So they have it annually where they invite artists to perform indie music in the form of hip hop, Afro beats, traditional fusion, soul, rock. Anybody who is performing any form of indie African music can come there and share their music with the audience, right? Then they have another event called the Talk Party Series. And that one is a free monthly platform that brings together creative professionals, social entrepreneurs, bloggers, artists, students. It's basically just an open forum, right? And then they come to create projects that transform communities through interactive public art. And then they have the last one called Strolling Goods. And this one is where they are asking anyone who knows anything about Accra, who knows that it is great people. GOAT is an acronym for greatest of all time. Anyway. So if someone says you're a GOAT, it means you are one of the greatest of all time. So they take pictures of people who reflect the greatness of Africa, the greatness of the people of Africa, and then they showcase it during using the Strolling Goods platform, right? So you realize that they have come up with series of events as a group based on the creative brainstorming that they were doing. And these are very creative names that I don't think anybody would have come up with out of the blue. Who knows what Sabolai means? Please, who knows what Sabolai means?
Dr. Onions.
Onions. So anyone who approaches you and talks about Sabolai Radio, wouldn't it sound odd?
Yeah, very odd.
Very odd, but it is a creative name that they came up with for something that they want to link to African culture. And Sabulai means onion in Ghana. And Ghans are indigenous to Africa. And I think I should let you understand this. These events are very popular in the African American community, to the point where a lot of African Americans travel from the United States to Ghana purposely to attend these events, like especially the Chaliwote Street Arts Festival and then the Stabulai Radio. So these are events that the organizers have created and have been able to generate some form of clout to enable them to have it annually and then earn significant returns from. Because definitely if this event was not paying in one way or another, and let me emphasize this, the payment or the outcome may not always necessarily be financial. It may come in the form of other resources or other forms of value, like networking. Through these events, people are able to connect with other artists, with financiers, with sponsors, with investors. So there are a lot of returns that come out of the organization of events of this nature. Right? Please, I hope we understand.
Yes, please.
Great. So the purpose for the event has to be clear. And like we can see from all the events that the Accra.alt people are organizing, from the Chaliwote to Sabulai Radio, to Talk Party, to Strolling Goats, it's all about showcasing African artists, African musicians, African photographers, African artists who are doing creative paintings and sculptures and stuff. All these people in the creative arts industry, they are bringing them together to showcase them. Right? Another typical example of an event is December to Remember. Please, who can tell us about December to Remember? Unless this is the first time you are hearing about it. Now, Momo, have you heard about December to Remember?
Yes, please.
Have you ever attended before?
No, please.
Oh, okay. So what did you hear about it? Nah. What do you know about December to Remember?
Yes. I'm trying to. Is it the same one they wear the white and jeans, or is not?
No, it is the same one.
Yeah, it's the one. Yes. Yeah, I know December to Remember.
Good.
Okay. Yes.
It's actually called December to Remember.
Yes, please. I was confusing it with Ghana Miss Niger.
Oh, okay. And do you know who came up with the December to Remember idea?
No, please.
You don't? Wow.
No.
Please, does anybody know who came up with the December to Remember idea? Now, Momo, thank you for your submission. Please, does anyone know who came up with the December to Remember idea? Please, does anyone know? Joanne, Gloria, Ruth.
No, please.
You don't know? Hey!
Yes, please.
Hey! Mercedes, do you know?
Have you heard it before?
Hey! The biggest Christmas party in Ghana.
Yeah. Maybe it happens in Accra. We are in.
Yes, it's true. It's happening in Accra. Yes. The people who actually started December to Remember are City FM. City FM started December to Remember. And it is because they realized that around the Christmas time, in Ghana here, there's no major event that takes place, except a girl talk. That takes place, I think, a week prior to Christmas. But apart from that, there was no major events that everybody could attend and enjoy and have fun. And they also realized that around that time, there were a lot of expatriates in the country. So to have that event would be something fun that the people who have come home from abroad can do to enjoy themselves instead of just staying at home with family during the Christmas holidays. So they came up with December to Remember. And they titled it the official Christmas party, because technically around that time, there was no huge party that anybody could just attend. And consistently for about 2-3 years now, the tickets always sell out days before the event. That's how popular December to Remember is. So you realize that the moment that the purpose is clear, people are able to go ahead and build an event around that purpose. For the December to Remember, it was about creating a Christmas party that everybody could attend, regardless of their background. And they wanted to make it fun so that people could enjoy themselves and keep coming back to the event every year. The same for the Accra.org people. They wanted to create something that would benefit the artists and also be able to attract all the foreigners, especially the Black Americans who were willing to come home to enjoy the arts and culture of Ghana, right? So that is it for the purpose. Now, once you are able to clearly determine the purpose of the event, you now have to go on to think about the success factors. And for the success factors, we are basically asking, what would success look like? If I organize an event, how will I be able to tell by the end of the event that I have been able to succeed at organizing it, that this event was a success? So for success factors, we are saying that asking this question at the outset provides an important checklist to feed into the creation and design process to ensure that you are able to gain specific outcomes. And in this vein, researchers describe a range of potential success factors. And these can be mentioned or described at various levels. And we'll take each of these levels one after the other. First, we can talk about the micro level success factors, which focus mainly on location. So you realize that a lot of the events are organized to be able to bring attention to a particular location, right? And in most of these instances, the commissioner of the event is a public body or a part of the governmental infrastructure. And this is usually done to increase awareness of a particular venue, being a city, a building, or a location within a town or country, or to bring particular attention to a particular occasion, right? Like the Year of Return. That is a classic example of an event that was supposed to commemorate an occasion. And this occasion was the return of all the expatriates and the Black Americans back to their roots, back home. Because it is believed that they are descendants of slaves who were taken out of the country without their consent. So they were celebrating the occasion of all these people who had been so far away from home coming home. And this was an event which, to the best of their knowledge, was a success because a number of people came back home, resulting in billions, I think, of dollars of revenue for the Ghana government, right? So to them, this is a micro level success factor. We can also talk about success factors relating to increasing awareness of certain traditional or sociocultural values. A lot of the festivals that we have in Ghana are an avenue through which we display our rich culture. The Odura Festival, Bakatwe, Kundum, these are all great demonstrations of the rich sociocultural environment in Ghana. Other events are also celebrated to increase civic pride, right? Like the Ghana at 50 celebrations, to increase the pride of Ghanaians in their country and how far we have come after gaining independence, right? Which again can contribute towards heightening the profile of an area, particularly Ghana, because Ghana at 50 was celebrated not just in Ghana, but in so many other parts of the world where Ghanaians lived. So it heightens the profile of our country. And these are examples of micro-level success factors that we can talk about. We can also talk about macro-level success factors. And these could focus around profile raising on a national or international level for a city, a region, or a country, where the success factors may include longer-term outcomes, right? Macro-level success factors can be linked to events like the World Cup, can be linked to events like Cannes 2008. These are huge profile raising events at a national and international level. where it has become prestigious for a country to have hosted the event at one time or the other. And as a result, every year we see that different countries always bid to host events of this nature. There's always a bid for which country will host the next World Cup, which country would host the next Olympic Games, which country will host the next Confederation of African Nations. All these things are macro level success factors that countries can celebrate at a national and international level once they get the opportunity to host, right? So this can result in things like increased inward investment or additional exports of local artifacts and wares. Increased inward investment in the sense that these events, being high profile national and international events, attract a lot of foreigners. They attract a lot of investors. They attract a lot of venture capitalists who will then come in and invest in the country, because if the country is good enough to host such a high profile event, then it is good enough to invest in. Also, when they come and see what we have to offer on a local level, our artifacts, our resources, and you realize that it's able to enhance exports, because a number of them will come, invest in the country, set up factories, invest in people's businesses, and then start exporting our wares to other places around the world. And all these are as a result of specific events that were hosted. So we can see that events are a very powerful tool, especially when it comes to tourism and hospitality. Next, we can talk about other success factors in general, like, for instance, reaching specific delegates, right? And participating or attending the event. So in this case, you are looking at how many people you were able to attract, especially where the event is thriving on numbers. Like I said, December to Remember is one of such events where the success is mainly measured based on the number of participants or attendees. And for about 2 or 3 years in a row, the December to Remember event has sold out way before the day of the event. So in that case, they will count it as a success factor. Other success factors could also be reaching key demographic targets like young people, the unemployed, women, or people from specific ethnic groups. So we have these events that they use to organize targeting specific age groups or specific demographics. For instance, like I said, the Girl Talk concert. Please, who knows about the Girl Talk concert?
That one they have gone before.
You've gone before. Charlie, tell us your experience. Tell us. Because
The Becca Girl Talk.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it didn't meet my expectation.
Oh, Charlie, because
I went to the
I've been seeing that it is a very vibrant event. Like from the way videos that I have seen.
It was the first one.
Yeah.
It was the very first one that we went for. Yes, the very first one they ever did. Yes, the one that the guys came there dressed as, and they revealed themselves at the end.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that's a typical example of an event that is targeted at women. You see?
Yeah.
Good. Then we have other events that are targeted at demographics like children. Please, who remembers Kidda Fest?
Yes, Kidda Fest. Come to Kidda
Fest. Good. No one was targeted at young people and children. You see, but right now it has even fallen by the wayside because I think the sponsorship kept going down over the years and eventually they had to stop it. But these are specific examples of events that are targeted at key demographics, right? And the success factors are ranked based on how well they are able to reach these key demographics that they are targeting. We can also talk about quantitative targets. A lot of the events are organized mainly because of financial reasons. So success is measured by how much they are able to break even or how much profits they are able to make. And again, we can talk about events like Rapperholic, December to Remember, Adom Praise, because the bottom line also matters. Given that they are importing all these artists from abroad and they have to pay them certain appearance fees and stuff, it's about being able to financially break even, and perhaps it will be more desirable to make a profit, right? So these are some quantitative targets that can be used to measure success. Other qualitative factors can be things like the look and feel of the venue, the quality of the audience experience. Like now Momo is saying, now Momo attended the first girl talk. She didn't have a good experience. So if we are talking in terms of qualitative terms in measuring the success, using now Momo's experience, we can say the event was not much of a success because she didn't really have a great experience, right? So these are ways in which, as an event professional, you can measure the level of success of your event. However, you have to determine this prior to organizing the event, so that while you are organizing the event, you can be ticking in the boxes whether or not these targets that you set in the beginning to measure your success are being met. Please, do we understand? Please, do we understand?
Yes, please.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So once we are able to clearly state the purpose of the event and determine the success factors of the event, we now have to test our concept. And in testing our concept, we are asking ourselves, is this idea fit for purpose? By giving an answer to this question, whether in the affirmative or the negative, it gives you the timely opportunity to get external input, feedback, creative collaboration, development, and/or consolidation. Why am I saying this? Sometimes your answer to this question of does the idea fit the purpose may be in the negative. On your own, you may think that, no, this idea, I can't turn it into an event. However, upon consultation, right, and some creative collaboration with other people and some brainstorming, you realize that it is not like the negative that you thought. Perhaps there's some light at the end of the tunnel. And that can only come about through creative collaboration, because perhaps at your level and based on the limits of your creativity, you think that the event may not be something that is fit for purpose. However, upon collaboration with others and bumping creative heads, right, and rubbing of minds, you can be able to determine whether or not this concept is good enough, regardless of how you feel. So critically, the concept testing enables ideas that are tested and found lacking to be rejected. Because in the creative collaboration, it may emerge that, yes, what you are thinking is actually so. This idea that you are coming up with is not actually good enough to proceed with. However, it may be that the idea is good, but it's not so good yet. It may need some few improvements. So again, through the creative collaboration that you are doing with others, you can be able to improve the idea prior to investing significant resources into it. Hence, the originality, authenticity, and uniqueness of your concept will be tested within this phase. Because if you are brainstorming, it will emerge whether or not this idea is original. Because by collaborating and discussing with others, they can be able to tell you that, oh, this thing that you're talking about, you're not the first person who has talked about it. Someone else has. In fact, they're already doing something that is mildly or maybe severely similar to what you are doing. So it is not original. And they can also tell you about the authenticity. Perhaps in your mind, you may think it's an original idea, but someone will draw your attention to that the idea that, I think I saw someone talking about the same thing on TV. And maybe perhaps subconsciously, you also saw the same thing, but you have forgotten that you saw it on TV. And later on, you are thinking and it comes to mind, and to you, it's authentic. But perhaps subconsciously, you've forgotten that you heard it somewhere, someone talking about the same idea. So you can be able to test the originality, authenticity, and uniqueness of your ideas through testing the concept with other collaborators, other creatives, right? And then through getting their inputs, you can be able to adequately say whether or not the concept is good enough to carry on to the next phase. So in concept testing, we are saying that consideration should be given to the notions of the effectiveness, expectedness, and appropriateness. Because an event idea may be plausible, it may be original, it may be authentic, it may be something that you think is unique. However, it may not be something that you can effectively pull off. And perhaps it may not even be appropriate. Who heard about when they said they were going to have a gay people's conference in Ghana? Who heard this news? I think it was last year or some years back. Who heard about it?
Madam, I heard about it.
Thank you. Now, this is an event idea that somebody had. And based on where they were coming from, in their mind, it was unique, it was authentic, it's original, something that nobody has done before, so they are going to do it. But it was not appropriate at all, given the religious nature of our country and the values of the citizens of Ghana. This event was not appropriate. And I think eventually they scrapped it. If they even had it, perhaps they did it underground where nobody heard anything about it. So that is a typical example of how an idea may look original, authentic, and unique, but it will not be appropriate and will not be able to be effectively organized. Because I believe that even if they went against the appropriateness of the thing and still stubbornly organized the event, it wouldn't have been effective, because perhaps they may have had people come in there to beat them up, scatter the place. I remember someone, Buko Banku, was on radio saying that you go there with a cane and lash all of them, right? So all this would have affected the effectiveness and the effectiveness of the event, right? Also, under concept testing, we need to think about deliverability, inclusivity, and appeal. In that sense, will the event reach its target group and serve its purpose? Such an event like a Gay People's Conference would not have been deliverable, inclusive, or appeal to anybody, because I know any other person who planned on even attending that event, even if you were not gay, and your family members found out. Mercy, this is all you have done if you found out a family member of yours was attending this event. They are not gay, they are just attending to see what will happen. What would you have done?
I'll be wondering why the person wants to go there in the first place.
You will be wondering if they are in the right frame of mind. Right? So there's no way it will appeal to anybody. So when you are designing an event, you need to think about whether it is inclusive, where everybody can want to attend. And a number of the events that are organized in Ghana here are very inclusive, such that even if children cannot attend, people among a wide demographic can attend. Perhaps people of certain ages can attend, people of a certain gender can attend. So they are all largely inclusive and appeal to a lot of people. Under concept testing, we are saying consideration should also be given to the wider context, right? Including the assessment of any other events that may compete in either time or space. And this is a very important criteria of concept testing. Imagine you are having an event around a time where there are so many other events taking place. Your event will now begin to compete with a lot of other events, and people will now have to divide themselves on deciding which one to attend and which one not to attend. And I know at certain times of the year, a lot of events crash, especially around Christmas time. So December to Remember and the way they organized it is one classic way where they thought very long and hard about competing events in time and space. They realized that around Christmas time, there are some events that take place, but there are not events that are organized on the scale that their event is organized. And secondly, the timing with which they organize it. Usually in Ghana, on 24th December, what are people doing? Patricia, usually on 24th, what do people in Ghana do, generally?
Madam, they travel.
Travel. A lot of people travel. What else do some people to do? Those who don't travel, what do?
They go to church.
They go to church. And then those who don't go to church,
they stay at home.
They stay at home. So before December to Remember came, those who don't want to go to church and those who don't travel are stuck in the house. So December to Remember came to fill that gap for the so-called Riasifo who don't want to go to church and those who don't want to travel to go and meet their family members, to have somewhere too that they can go to and go and enjoy themselves. So in that case, December to Remember was designed to not compete with any other event, to have its own unique time and space, to give enough people the opportunity to participate. To the point where I know some people who on 24th will pass through church and then from there go to December to Remember. Unfortunately, there's no one here who has attended before. I'm sure they would have been able to confirm what I'm saying. But I know for a fact there are some people who go to church on 24. They just pass through so that people will see them. And then from there, straight to December to remember. So this is a prime example of how you can give consideration to the wider context and make sure that the events that you are designing does not go and clash with any other events that will steal the shine of yours and prevent people from fully participating for you to get the outcomes that you are anticipating to receive, right? So once you go through these 3 steps of determining your purpose, the success factors that you hope to achieve, and then testing your concept to make sure that it can stand against other events that are being held around in the wider context, you then ultimately come out with your theme. And for the theme, we are saying that the originator of the event or the person who came up with the idea or the concept can proceed with more confidence at this stage to come up with an articulate theme for the event, because now you know you have put your idea through the mill. You've run it by your collaborators, you people have brainstormed, you've done your creative brainstorming sessions, and you've seen that, okay, this event is worth pursuing. These are the success factors that we hope to achieve if this event comes on. And based on the concept testing, we can say on authority that there's no other event being held around the same time by similar people or for similar purposes that can compete with our event and steal its shine. So now we can go ahead and come out with a theme. And once you have a theme, you can bring a clear and robust proposition to the design stage, right? So the creative lens gives you the confidence that you need to confirm your theme, which you will then carry to the design stage to actually design the outlook of the event and how it is going to play out. So there are different themes of events that people host. In Ghana here, I haven't seen much creativity when it comes to the organization of events in terms of themes. Please, does anybody know, has anyone attended any event that has a theme before? And can you tell us the theme of the event? Gloria, have you been to any such event that has a theme?
I think when they launched the sustainable tourism development, the one with different colors, I've forgotten, 2020 or 20 something. I was at Kempinski for something, so I just passed by and then.
Okay. What was the theme?
Yeah, it was concerning sustainable tourism.
Okay. That's a typical example of a theme, right? Thank you, Gloria. Joan, have you attended anything like that?
Oh, please.
You haven't?
Yes, madam.
Oh, haven't you gone to a wedding where they have said that the colors of the wedding are pink and gold?
Oh, okay, yes.
That's an example of a theme.
Oh.
That's an example of a theme. Okay, so we are saying that when you put a theme to your event, it becomes a great way for the people who are attending the event to have fun, right?
Doctor.
And participate in your event.
Doctor.
Yes, dear.
There is this program Joy FM organized every December. That's Joy FM. Is that part? Joy FM family something in the park.
Good. That is another event. And the theme is usually family, right? It's a family fun day.
Family, party in the park.
Good, exactly. That is an example.
Okay.
Well done. That's an example.
So, Doctor, can we classify that as the micro, as a micro level something? As
a micro level success factor.
Yes, please.
Yes, we can. Do they charge an entry fee?
Yes, please. They do.
Okay, so we can call it a micro level success factor because they are doing it as a result of an occasion, right? Which is Christmas.
Yeah.
And then we can also say it's an other success factor because they are targeting families, right? So
yes,
mothers and fathers and children, right? And then we can also say it's a quantitative target because they are selling tickets. So they hope to make some what? Money.
Money.
At the end of the day. So from what you are saying, we realize that the event can have multiple success factors.
Yeah.
You see, aha. So they are winning on different fronts.
Okay.
And you notice that it is organized at a time where there's a lot of activity, but it does not clash with any other major activity.
Yeah. They organize it very early.
Good.
I think 14th December.
Good. So they have been smart. They have tested the concept to make sure that it does not clash with any other event to steal their shine. That's an excellent example. Well done.
Thank you.
So we can see that it is something that is happening around us. So now when we are watching the event, as event professionals, we are watching it with very, very micro lens to be able to pick it apart. Yeah. So based on that, we are saying that the themes can be a great way for the attendees to get involved. So like our sister just told us about, it's a family event. So there's a lot of family activities for people to engage in. I'm sure there'll be bouncy castles, face painting, food, there'll be a Father Christmas. All of these things are making the thing participatory because the children will want to play on the bouncy castle. The parents will want to eat some food, good music, right? And it also creates plenty of photo opportunities because the children want to take a picture with Father Christmas. The family will take pictures together. The parents will take pictures of the children on the bouncy castle. They'll take pictures of everybody while they were eating, while they were dancing, while their faces were being painted, right? And it also creates good buzz prior to the event because usually when they are advertising the event, you hear them saying that it is taking place on this day, Father Christmas will be there, there'll be bouncy castles, there'll be a lot of food, there'll be a lot of drink, come and spend time with the family, right? So these are all ways by which the theme is used to bring flavor to whatever events that you are trying to put together. And in Ghana here, we usually operate within a limited set of themes. And the most creative themes I have seen are the black and white parties, the blue and white by the December to Remember people, the family themed events, which there are a lot of them around, and then some couple themed events. And then there's the ones that the color themed events that the couples do for their weddings and engagements, right? But there are so many other sources of inspiration. For instance, a theme can be based on an Academy Award-winning movie or a particular era. I remember when we were in secondary school, we used to do 80s Day, where everybody dresses like the 80s. And we used to call our parents from home to bring us their dresses when they were wearing in the 80s and the 90s and the 70s, depending on the year or the era that we are portraying, right? They could also be based on vacation escapes. A lot of events are based on, like someone can say they're having a resort party. So everybody has to dress like they're going to a resort, even though it's a pool party. So what will you wear to a resort? You usually wear bikinis, hats, light clothing, slippers, sunglasses. All these fun things will be the theme of such a party, right? And our children also used to do this in school. When before COVID-19, they will have days that they represent specific nationalities. They will have days where they celebrate the African Union. I remember AU Day. My children came asking me for kente and beads, and then to dress up like traditional Ghanaians to attend AU Day. I'm sure you can all bear with me. You've all, those of you who have kids have experienced this a bit. Or can anyone?
Yes, doctor.
So these are examples of themes that are based around countries and capitals around the world, right? Some events are also based around childhood memories. Before, prom and homecoming was not something popular in Ghana. Now, thanks to the international schools, prom and homecoming has come to stay. GIS's prom is the talk of the town, right? SOS, their prom and homecoming is the talk of the town. So these are all parties that people develop around themes like prom and homecoming, colors, like I said, for the married couples, and then some people for their birthday parties to celebrate how far they have come. Some people too have parties based on global cuisine. This is done a lot by the restaurants and the hotels. So there are some hotels that have seafood night, continental night, African night. Some of the hotels even have specific themes based on different cuisine for their buffet. So Holiday Inn, for instance, every Sunday is Ghana buffet. So they have a variety of Ghanaian food, any kind of Ghanaian food, from cocoa to kose to what is this thing called? This zoe. You see all there, because the theme for the cuisine on that day is Ghana cuisine. And you have other themes for parties too that are based on brands. And these ones are done mostly by the corporate organizations who host these parties and events to perhaps launch their new products or promote their companies and the products that they sell. So you attend an MTN party and the whole place is branded yellow. It's a yellow party because it's MTN that is organizing. Please, does it make sense?
Yes, please.
So apart from the ones that I have mentioned, there are other parties too that people have in other parts of the world. We can talk about circus themed parties. In Ghana, we don't have circus, but abroad, circus are a big thing. And they have circus parties. Some people too have Bollywood themed parties where everybody will dress like an Indian in Bollywood. They also have parties called a royal affair, where people will dress like royalty, will dress like Prince Charles, Queen Elizabeth. Then we have the typical black and white party, where everyone is wearing either black or white or a combination of the two. Then we have the Bond party, which is usually based on the James Bond movies. So people will dress the way the people in the James Bond movies would dress. The women usually dress very sexy, and the men usually dress in sharp suits just to look professional and cool like James Bond, right? Then we have the Frozen party, which is based on the children's animation movie Frozen, which is a lot of the young girls' themes for their birthday parties now. They will either go for Frozen or Sophia. And it's the theme that is used for the cake, for the setup. And there are event professionals who specialize in organizing these themed children's parties. They have all the characters and everything. They have chairs and tables that can be designed and built around all these cartoon characters that the children watch, right? The Roaring Twenties is another popular theme in the United States and in the UK, because the 20s was an era where a lot of people were having fun. Then we also have the blue and white parties, which we know in Ghana here is the December to Remember party. So these are examples of event themes that are organized around us most of the time. Now, I want to show you a bit of some pictures of how some of these themed events can take. So let's quickly look at these images. Now, these images are by a company called Visual Impact, and they're a company that organizes events, and they specialize in providing props and items to be able to set up spaces to look like specific themes. So please, can we see the screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we can see that they have put pictures of the different themed events that they organize. Now, as you can see, the first one is a circus themed event. Please, can we see it?
No, please, I can. Okay, I can see now.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay, so you see the whole place is set up to look like a circus. Please, can we see it?
Yes, please.
Good.
Yes, please.
They have the clowns, the ring that the circus performers will perform in, the lights.
Yes, please.
Good. Right? And then they have the circus rides, and then people are dressed like people who are attending the circus. Please, can you see? So it becomes a fun thing for the people because they can also play a part for a night, right? This is an example of an urban warehouse party as well. And you can see that the typical theme in warehouses is being portrayed here. There are no chairs or tables. They have these boxes and cushions, all to be able to follow the theme of the warehouse. Please, can we see it?
I'll give you two big chicken wings.
We can also talk about the Russian theme, right? This one too was set up to look like Russia. We know these buildings are very popular in that part of the world where there is Russia and Romania, right? This is how they build their buildings. So they put designs in the building to look like a Russian theme. Please, can we see it? Please, can we see it?
For the Russian, it's
Yes.
not showing.
Oh, the Russian theme is here. Can you see it?
Yeah. Yes, please,
Yes.
I can see.
Right. So they set it up to look like a Russian theme. And the next one they have here is UV fish. So UV fish, ultraviolet rays are known to glow in the dark. Right. So they have fishes that are glowing in the dark, and that is the theme of the party. Please, are we there?
Yes.
Then the next theme they have is Alice in Wonderland. And that one is based on the Alice in Wonderland story that we all know of. So the theme is everything that is in the book. So we can see the rabbits that was in the book, the items from the tea party, the heart-shaped trees and flowers. All of these things, if you have watched the movie Alice in Wonderland before or read the book, you would know that these are unique to that particular storyline. Please, are we okay?
Yes, please.
Great. So, in essence, we are saying that it is important to have a theme so that it will be able to tie in the whole concept from the purpose to the success factors to the concept testing to give you something concrete to carry on to the design stage to be able to properly design your event. Now, after the theme is developed, we have come to the end of the creative lens, and now we move into the design lens. Now, the design lens is the level where we are saying that whatever the nature of the event, once we have established a theme, we have to design the entire event to fit around the theme that we have. So like we just saw, if the theme is Russia, we have to build the entire event around Russia and all things Russian. So we saw in the picture, there were pictures of Russian buildings that were used to design the whole event space. The same for the circus theme. The whole event space was designed to look like a real life circus, where they had pictures of clowns, they had the ring in the middle for all the circus performers to come and perform. So the design stage considers the precise form and format that the event should take. And once that is determined, you can be able to adequately deliver the purpose that you set out to achieve in the beginning when you started thinking about organizing the event. And just like the creative lens, the design lens also has a series of filters that we have to put the theme through to ensure that we have created a good enough event around it. So just like the creative lens, at this stage, we have three main pointers that we have to address. The first one is the stakeholder review. The second one is logistics. And the third one is finance. And by the time we have finished conducting the stakeholder review, determining the logistics, and then determining our finances, we'll be able to finally come out with an event concept. Now, please, you really need to pay key attention at this stage because there's an assignment that will come at the end of the lecture, so that you can be able to respond to the assignment appropriately. So we'll take each of the steps one after the other. First, let's talk about the stakeholder review. Now, under the stakeholder review, the main question we are asking ourselves is, which key relationships are going to impact this event? Now, Bolden et al. 2011 identifies that there are so many potential stakeholders that you can have for a particular event. And each of the stakeholders, by the time you finish identifying them, possess an eclectic range of stakes that pin down their engagement and interaction with the event. So anybody who comes in support of an event or partners you to bring up an event or helps you in the creative process of designing an event has some level of expectation that they expect to get from the event. And based on the level of expectation and how much they have invested by way of resources, they have different levels of power. So for instance, in organizing an event, the person who is paying for the event, as well as the person who is going to attend the event for it to become a success, will most likely yield more power than somebody who is not actually paying money to support the event and perhaps was just giving you moral support while you were organizing the event. True or false? Please, true or false? If you are organizing an event and someone is sponsoring the event and paying for everything, and someone is just giving you moral support, which person will have more power when it comes to determining what happens in the event?
The one supporting you with the money, the financial aspect.
Exactly. So that tells us that the stakeholders have different levels of power. And as event professionals, we need to treat them as such. So examples of stakeholders you can have, first of all, are client organizations. And client organizations in this case refer to the people who came up with the idea of the event and engaged your services as an event professional to plan and organize the event on their behalf. We can also talk about the local community. And here they may not necessarily be people who will attend the event. They could also be the people who are living within the vicinity of the space or the venue that you are organizing the event. And they are also stakeholders, because in case they decide that they don't want you to have the event in their country or their town, you will not be able to do it. We can also talk about government at various levels, because there are certain events that when you want to organize in Ghana, you need to go to certain governmental agencies to obtain a permit to organize that event. Who knows about any such events that you need a permit to organize? And from which governmental organization do you need a permit? You know of any events that if you want to organize, you need a permit?
Doctor, I'm thinking any event that concerns children.
Good. Good. That's a good one. So do you know of any such example in Ghana?
Not really. Okay. Maybe this Joy FM family party in the park.
Exactly. Because you're bringing a lot of people to a location.
Yeah.
So you need a permit. Most of the time, because it's in a public space and it's an open space like that, you need a permit from the AMA.
Okay.
Sometimes people organize health walks, marathon. You need a permit to organize it because it's going to cause an obstruction. And sometimes security agencies have to be deployed to make sure that it is done in a peaceful manner. If you want to organize a protest or a demonstration, it's an event, you need permission from the Ghana police. So these are all various levels of government that you may need consent from, depending on the events that you're organizing, right? Stakeholders could also be potential attendees and participants. Like I said, the participants have a great role to play, especially when you want them to part with some money or some form of resources in exchange for the value or the experience you are going to offer them at the event. And a very important set of stakeholders that everyone knows are worth paying attention to are sponsors. Because without their resources, the event will not happen. And then lastly, we can talk about volunteers, another very important group. Because most of the events that are organized have to rely on the services of these volunteers to be able to make sure that the event comes off without a hitch. Because it will not be prudent for the event organizers to go in search of ushers that they will pay to help with the event. They may not even have enough money to do so. So they will have to rely on the services of volunteers to be able to get this done. So this is just a few of the stakeholders that an event professional can talk about and pay close attention to when it comes to designing the event. So here, it is critical that each stakeholder is acknowledged and responded to appropriately, depending on the level and nature of their investment. So like I said, sponsors will definitely be priority, or the client organization will be priority, because they are the people paying for the whole thing. Without them, the thing is not going to take place at all. For you to even go and seek consent, or for you to even go and look for volunteers, right? And in that vein, medium to long-term relationships must be built to be able to gain a better understanding of your stakeholders and develop better dialogue and mutual interest with them. This is supposed to help you in case you subsequently want to organize the event at a different time. So you realize that there are certain events that have long-standing sponsors, and the sponsors have been with the event since its inception. And that is a clear indication of a long-term relationship that has been built between the event organizers and that particular sponsor in question. You also realize that every time that certain events are organized, they do not struggle to get volunteers. They do not struggle to get people to participate because they have managed to build long-term relationships with all these different groups of stakeholders, such that whenever the event is mounted, the people will attend and the volunteers will come and participate to support. So, given the level of importance that stakeholders have when it comes to the successful execution of an event, their ideas must be sought when it comes to the theme of the event and putting the event together. Because if somebody is sponsoring the event, they have to at least have a say in what the event is about and how it is going to be planned and organized. So, for instance, I know that some sponsors would contribute a certain amount of money or a certain amount of products or resources depending on where you are organizing the event. So they can sponsor and say, okay, we will sponsor your event on one condition, that you organize the event at Kempinski, or that you do it at National Theatre, or that you do it at Fiesta Royale. If you do it there, we will give you all the money that you need. We will give you all the support that you need. But if you are doing it at this place, no, we can't. Some organizations too, I know, will not agree to sponsor an event if they view a competitor as being associated with the event. So for instance, if Samsung is going to sponsor an event and Apple is sponsoring, they will not sponsor anymore because they don't want to share a platform with Apple. They want to be able to stand alone. So these are examples of how priority can be given to stakeholders and they can be engaged on their ideas and preferences when it comes to the organization of the event. So in performing the stakeholder review, there's a tool that you can use to be able to help you determine the exact level of priority to accord to each stakeholder involved in your event. And like I said earlier, you can realize that certain events have been associated for a long time with specific sponsors. This event was called Coca-Cola Presents Christmas with Naninete and Friends, and it was organized, I think, twice before, unfortunately, Reverend Naninete passed away. And it was always headlined by Coca-Cola. And CTFM was associated with it right from the beginning. The other sponsors, I can't really tell for now if they were associated with it from the beginning, but you realize that depending on who the sponsors were, they were acknowledged accordingly. So I don't know, can you see from the bottom of the screen, the sponsors on the flyer? Please, can you see it?
Yes,
Yes, please.
Good.
Yes, please.
You realize that Coca-Cola being the main sponsor was present, their name was put first. Please, can we see it?
Yeah.
Followed by the CCML, the Christian, I've forgotten the full name, but it's like a Christian microfinance or something of the sort. Their names came second, right? Followed by this third group, I can't really see the name well. And then the media partners come. And again, the media partners are put in order of importance. We can see that CTFM was put first. Like I said, Coca-Cola and CTFM have been associated with this event right from its inception. And they were there throughout until, unfortunately, the main character around which the event was built passed on. Again, we can talk about events like this, which was held recently online to discuss entertainment beyond the lockdown, right? And they brought on board a number of professionals and artists to come and discuss the issues relating showbiz and entertainment in Ghana post-COVID-19. And you can see that a number of the sponsors that have been put here relate to the multimedia group. So you can see Joy News, Joy 99.7, Joy Online, Love 99.5, Joy Prime. These are all multimedia agencies, right? So the sponsors have been acknowledged because they are all stakeholders in the event, including the names of the people who are participating, because again, they are also stakeholders. We can also talk about December to Remember. Again, a number of the partners have been put at the bottom. So you can see that Eden Security is one main partner. And in 2019, which was the year of return, the year of return organization partnered with December to Remember to make sure that it is one of the main events that are highlighted as part of the year of return. And once again, we can see Coca-Cola at the forefront. So in essence, we are saying that in identifying the stakeholders, there are different tools that you can use. There are different ways that you can acknowledge their input and how much they've contributed to organizing the event. One way to do that is by just producing a simple list. Like we just saw, there have been stakeholders listed on the bottom of the flyers, some in order of importance, others just randomly placed, right? For this particular one, we can see it's in order of importance. Whereas with these subsequent ones, they have just been randomly placed because for this flyer, for instance, they are all from the same organization, right? Or you can use a grid, referencing a range of data, including their level of investment. So when you draw up the grid, you can put their investment on one hand and who they are on the other, and then rank them based on the level of investment to be able to determine what level of importance they hold when it comes to the event. You can also use a flow chart for this, or just a 2x2 box diagram capturing their level of interest, their influence, and or engagement. Now, this 2x2 box diagram is what we refer to as the stakeholder map. Now, this is a stakeholder map having, like mentioned earlier, a 2x2 box structure. And on one axis, which is the y-axis, we can see that it is measuring the influence or power that the stakeholder has. So the higher you go up the axis, the more power that the stakeholder has. And then the x-axis is representing interest. So the further out you go, the more interest that the stakeholder has in the event that is being organized. So for low influence and low interest, we have this grid. And then for low influence and high interest, we have the stakeholders in this box. And then for high influence and high interest, they are on this point. And then high influence and low interest, they are on this point. And someone will ask, how will this be relevant to an event professional? In practicality, when an event professional is creating this grid, they are saying that in the box or the quadrant where they have high influence and low interest, we have to just simply do what? Keep them satisfied, because they are contributing a lot, which is making them very influential. But they are not so much interested in what is going on. So we just have to make sure that they stay happy. However, at the bottom of that quadrant, where we have the low influence, low interest, they are not giving us that much money. And they are also not that much interested in the event. So we just have to expend minimum effort in engaging with them. However, we have to monitor them to make sure that they do not do anything that will confound the outcome of our event. In the quadrant next to that, we can see the low influence, high interest group people. And they are not contributing enough. However, they have a lot of interest in what we are doing. So it's in our best interest as event professionals to do what? Keep them informed, because they are very interested in what we are doing. Even though they are not giving us as much resources to warrant a high level of influence on the event, we still have to keep them informed, simply based on their level of interest. Now, for those who have high influence and high interest, it means that they have contributed a lot to events and they are very vested in the outcome of the event. So we have to manage them very closely by doing everything that we can to ensure that we keep them happy and give them as much information as we can. So this is a practical example of how an organization did this classification for their stakeholders. And you realize that they have the names of specific stakeholders in specific quadrants. So in this quadrant, we can see that they have the names of Dora Brown and Mike Wilkins, in the sense that Dora Brown and Mike Wilkins didn't give them a lot of resources. So they don't have that much influence on the event, and they have very low interest. So they are going to treat Dora Brown and Mike Wilkins with very little effort. They'll just monitor them. Now, in the next quadrant, where there is high level of interest and low level of power or influence, we see Jose Hernandez and Maureen Moss have been put in this box, meaning that these two people have to be kept informed because they do not have that much power or influence, but they are very interested in what is going on. And then in the keeping satisfied quadrant, we have only Mr. P.S. Marshall. This is meaning that he's giving us a lot of money, but he doesn't have that much interest in what we are doing with the event. So we will just do our best to keep him satisfied. But in the quadrants where we are supposed to manage them closely, you see that Janet Blesher, Michael Smith, and Amanda McKay have given us a lot of resources, giving them a lot of power and influence over the event. And at the same time, too, they are highly interested in everything that we are doing. So we need to manage these three people very closely. So ideally, if you were organizing an event, this is how you were going to place your different stakeholders based on the role that they play, how much influence that they have, and the level of interest they have in what you are doing. And that will determine the quadrants that you place them in. This will serve as a constant reminder to you of how to handle them in terms of managing your relationship with them as sponsors or stakeholders in your event, right? So that brings us to the end of the stakeholder review. Does anyone have anything they would like to ask before we proceed?
Doug.
Yes, Mercedes.
Please, I have a question on the last slide
This
before
one.
this, where we have the names of the, yes. So I want to find out, is it possible that when we take Janet, Michael, and Amanda, though they are in the same quadrant, is it possible that we can say that maybe Janet, one of them has more, as we want to rank the three by 1, 2, and 3, is it possible to do that? Or because they are all in the same quadrant?
Yes, it's possible to do that, but you do it within the same quadrant. So instead of doing it random like they have done, like you are suggesting, we can do 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So you're right.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mercedes. Please, does anyone else have something they would like to ask? No one? We are all okay. All right. So let's go on. Now that we are done with the stakeholder review, let's move into the logistics of the event. Once you are able to determine the stakeholders that you have for the event and then the contribution that each of them will make to the event, you now have to think about the event logistics. And here you're asking yourselves, what are the practical considerations when it comes to the events that we are trying to organize? And under the practical considerations, you are looking at things like the size and scale of the event, the location of the event, the timing of the event, and the amount of preparation that you need to do to make the event happen. Now, we'll take them one after the other, and then we'll explain them, starting from the size or scale of the event. Now, for the size or scale of the event, it could be impacted by one, stakeholder aspirations. I have been part of organizing committees where we started thinking that we were going to organize the event for about 10 or 15 people. And then the sponsors come in and they are like, no, we do not want you to do it on this small scale. Increase the numbers to about 50 and move the event from the workshop room that you are organizing it in to the conference room at Fiesta Royale. That is a typical example of how stakeholder aspirations can change the scale and size of your event. We can also talk about the necessity for and extent of profile raising required to meet local, national, and international ambitions. If the government were the people who were organizing that workshop, they will not do it at a small workshop in a conference room in some company or in some hotel. They may move it to a nationwide conference that they will host in a place like perhaps the International Conference Center to make it large enough to fit the profile of an event being organized by the government of Ghana. And like Na told us earlier, the sustainable tourism was launched at Kempinski Hotel, one of the most prestigious event locations in Ghana at the moment, right? All to be able to raise the profile of the event to meet the level at which the organizers expect it to be, right? The scale of the event could also depend on the potential to attract appropriate audience members. You may plan an event for 50 and 100 people, but if you do not do enough marketing and you do not design the event such that it's attractive enough to the audience members for them to want to participate, you may end up having a smaller number of people. Perhaps you may not even get to half of the 50 mark. because of the potential to attract appropriate audience members. Another thing too that could affect the scale of the event is the budget available. Like I said, before we started planning the event, we were thinking that based on the budget that we currently had, we can only accommodate 10 to 15 people in a small meeting room to have the workshop. But once we brought sponsors on board and they invested resources, they said, no, we can't have this event for only 10 to 15 people. Increase the number to 50 people. We are giving you enough money to foot the cost, and then move the event to a conference room in Fiesta Royale, because now they were giving us enough resources to be able to increase the budget to accommodate all these new provisions. The scale of the event too could be impacted by the technical capabilities obtainable for the event. If you want to organize a very large event at a particular location, say a conference, and you are expecting 100 to 200 people, and the facilities at the place are not able to accommodate these 100 to 200 people that you are intending to bring, you may have to think twice and then scale down the number, because the technical capabilities of your venue, which perhaps you were constrained by, will not allow you to bring all these people to the same place and have a successful event there. So these are factors that can affect the scale and size of your event. Also, considerations of the most appropriate venue are part of the things we think about under logistics. How well will the venue that we have chosen be in congruence with the theme or the event? So someone sets out to have a wedding and they want their wedding to be the talk of town. So for your wedding to be the talk of town, it cannot be held at the same place that all the other smaller weddings are being held, like the event centers and the churches. So why don't we rent out the whole Kempinski big ballroom and have our wedding there, right? That is an example of a location of venue that brings out the scale of the events that they want to organize, and it's in congruence with the theme. Kensi 2020 was organized at Kempinski Hotel, and based on the theme that they had, the venue was in congruence with that theme. It wouldn't have been the same if they had done it at some event center in East Legon, or if they had done it at Fiesta Royale. Please, would it have been the same? Would it have had the same effect? Hello?
No.
Hello.
No, please.
It wouldn't, because Kempinski is like the optimal. Perhaps if they had done it at Movenpick, but still, Kempinski was the happening place. Right? So the location matched the theme of the events that they were organizing, right? Now, the nature of the dialogue or relationship with the venue and the level of priority that they will afford your event counts significantly towards organizing a successful event. You may want to organize your event at a particular place, and you may think that the event is the venue is perfect for your event, but the venue may not see the event that you are organizing as one that is important enough and deserves their attention. I know people who have tried to have their wedding receptions at expensive hotels like Labadi Beach and Movenpick, and the level of service that they have been afforded cannot be compared to the level of service that other more high-profile weddings have received at the same place. So what you need to think about again when it comes to the location that you want to have your event is, are the contacts at the event venue supportive? Are they willing to help you to achieve your vision and your theme and make it come to life? Are they flexible and adaptive such that even if you want something changed the day before the event, they will be happy and supportive enough to do it for you? And are they positive in the sense that they will always give you encouragement and let you feel at ease and comfortable when it comes to the logistics of your event, such that they will always encourage you that, oh, don't worry, we will work everything out. Everything will be fine. You will succeed at this event. You will enjoy organizing it. These are the questions you need to ask yourself. Because if the venue is not offering you this supportive, flexible, adaptive, and positive atmosphere, it's not worth organizing your events there, regardless of whether they are the most prestigious location in the country. Another thing you need to think about is timing. And like we established earlier, people who are organizing a lot of events, especially around the Christmas time, always plan the timing such that it does not clash with all the other major events that are taking place. So like we recognize the Joy FM Family Fun event is organized very early in December, around the 14th, where there are not that many activities taking place, because most of the activities have been getting closer to the 25th mark and then moving into the new year. So you need to think about timing in terms of the calendar year. What events are being organized around the same dates? You also need to think about timing in terms of the seasons and weather. During the rainy season, which usually happens between April and June, July, people are encouraged not to have events outside because you never know when the sky will change and there will be a downpour. So these are all things that you need to think about. In terms of logistics and timing too, you also need to think about timeline. Some people are fond of starting to plan an event and starting to look for a venue when it's getting close to the crunch, where they are pressed for time and it's almost time for the event to happen. You need to give yourself enough time and then give yourself enough key dates and milestones to ensure that you plan well in advance to have a successful event. So the timeline should note key dates and times for both the micro and macro activities that you have to perform leading up to the event. Like I said, some people will wait until the last minute to book the venue. Some people wait until the last minute to go and look for a seamstress to sew the dress. Some people wait until the last minute to start looking for chairs and tables to rent, right? So you have to think about all these things so that you do not get caught in the sense where when you are ready to book a venue, the venues can't confirm because they have booked all their dates. And you now have to wait to see if by chance you have the opportunity to get a date when someone cancels. You should also think about rehearsal dates, because at least there should be a day or two free prior to your event to enable you to do setup and run through the place to make sure that everything is well secured. You also need to think about timeline in terms of, most importantly, finances that you are going to use to pay for all these things that you are planning to do. Because if you have not secured the finances, you can go about your planning and booking of your venue, getting your logistics, your rentals and everything in place. But if you are not able to pay for them, the vendors will not deliver. So you need to think long and hard about the timeline when it comes to securing the finances and making them available to pay for the services that you are going to be receiving. So to be able to help with this, a number of people prepare what we call a milestone chart. And it helps you to be able to plan the timeline leading up to your event, and then give yourself key milestones that will help you to be able to see whether or not you are on course towards performing all the activities that you need to perform in order to successfully host the event on the D-Day. Some people too will go into more detail and add a Gantt chart to the milestone chart. That will help them to be able to even break down to a more micro and finer level the kind of activities they need to be performing, sometimes on a daily basis, to ensure that they meet all the targets they have to meet before the day of the event. So here we can see a sample of a project timeline with milestones. We can see that the planning of the event started as early as 1 year prior. So the event is supposed to be in December 2019, but they've been planning since what? January. So there are specific milestones in every month, I think for every other month. And in January, there's a milestone that's supposed to be achieved on January 10th. In February, there's no milestone, but in March, there are 2 milestones. And then the 2 months after, there's no milestone, but on June 29th, there's another milestone. And then subsequently, there's no milestone until October 20th. Then a milestone pops up. And another milestone on November 30th. And then the event takes place in what? December. Now, at the bottom is what we will refer to as the Gantt chart. This one is not so detailed, but it is listing a number of tasks that have to be performed and the period within which they have to be performed. So you can see that the initiation phase is supposed to take place between January 5th and 1st March. And within that period, there's a milestone that should be achieved on January 10th. And we can see that the design of the event is supposed to take place between February and March. And then there's 2 milestones in there that they are supposed to achieve, one on March 7th and one on March 14th, and so on and so forth. So as an event professional, these are some of the tools that you can use to guide you when it comes to your logistics. so that you do not fall behind. Now, this is a more detailed version of the Gantt chart, which is actually telling us even the number of days within which you have to perform the specific tasks and activities, right? And the number of tasks that you have to perform, as well as the milestones that you have to reach throughout the process leading up to the main event. So these are all tools that as an event professional you can use to be able to work out your logistics and the activities that you have to perform in order to ensure that the event will actually take place. Please, does anyone have anything they would like to ask before we continue? Please, how many of you use Gantt charts in your workplace? Does any one of you use a Gantt chart at the workplace? Mercedes?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What tasks do you use it for?
Okay, so basically for all our projects that we do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So as we
but like I was saying, we have different, sometimes it's not so detailed, but just a bit of highlights as to what you're supposed to do, maybe reporting, planning, basic, yeah.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing. So we see an event basically like Mercedes is saying, as a project. And that is why we bring in tools from project management like Gantt charts to help us to be able to make sense of everything that we are doing. And again, like Mercedes emphasized, we not every Gantt chart has to go into so much detail. Sometimes they are not so detailed, but they just give you the generalized view of the activities you have to perform. So thank you for that, Mercedes. Now, once we are able to finish with our stakeholder review, and then
I have a question.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, so under the logistics, we mentioned something about finances. Yes.
Yes.
This side.
Yes.
Yes. I'm wondering why finances came here, because I thought we were going to talk about it when it comes to the.
Okay, so finances came here as a result of the timeline within which you obtain the finances.
Oh, okay.
You see, when someone promises to sponsor an event, I don't know, but I think you've organized an event before. It takes a long time to get them to part with the money.
Sure. Okay, so we are looking at that.
Exactly. So you have to plan such that the timing is enough for you to get the check in good time to pay all the vendors before the event.
Okay. It's understood. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercedes. So now we are going to talk about the finances proper. Now that we have discussed stakeholder review and logistics. And under the finances proper, we are asking the simple question, is there enough money for what we want to do? At the design stage, people come up with a lot of lofty ideas. We want huge round tables. We want a cascading, what do they even call it? Cascading drapes. We want huge chandeliers. We want shiavari, am I pronouncing it right? Shiavari chairs. Please, am I pronouncing it right?
Some people say chevalier, I don't know. I don't know.
You got the idea of the chair I'm talking about. That chair. So all these things cost money, right? So and we have to ask ourselves, is there enough money? Yes. Thank you. Because for me, before they came, I only knew about the foldable chair. So Chevalier, anyone goes, but you know that expensive chair I'm talking about. We thank God. So these chairs are expensive. They cost more to rent than our traditional foldable chairs and plastic chairs. So when you are mentioning things like this with the cascading drapes and the chandeliers and then the high flower arrangements and then the lighting and the monograms, you need to be seeing that these are things that will increase your budget. So in financing, we are thinking about the availability of the cash to fund all these things. Now, where the availability is determined in advance, you need to be able to develop a budget to capture all your expected income and expenditure, so that you'll be able to tell that, okay, this is the amount of money I have. And then you can work within the money that you have to put up a respectable event. Because already in advance, you know how much you are getting. You know that perhaps the budget for this thing is 50,000. I had a colleague who was dumped by his girlfriend because he said he only had 10,000 Ghana. I think, was it 6 years ago? He said he only had 10,000 Ghana to do their wedding. And she said she doesn't want a 10,000 Ghana wedding. So she dumped him. But today he's happily married with someone else. I don't believe he did a 10,000 Ghana wedding because I didn't go and ask. But he had a predetermined amount for the event. And the girl was not ready to work within that amount. So it led to the event being cancelled. However, I think if they had sat down to put together a budget of income and expenditure, they would have been able to come to a compromise and done something respectable within the 10,000 budget that they had. But this is just an example. And by the way, as event professionals, all we are saying is that when you know how much money you have to spend, don't go exceeding your budget and doing all manner of things. Keep yourself in check by putting together a budget that will clearly tell you how much income you have, how much expenses that you have, and then how much you can make them work within the amount of money that you have put aside for the event. But in some cases, you may know the amount in advance, but it will be insufficient. So if you know the amount in advance, and by creating your budget, you can see that regardless of how much you massage figures and move things around, there's no way that what you have will be sufficient enough to put together even a respectable event. You need to think about ways of perhaps, first of all, seeking additional resources, maybe from the person who commissioned the project. Or if you are the same person who commissioned the project and is organizing, you need to start thinking about how you will raise additional funds, perhaps through sponsorship or fundraising, to make up for the deficit in funding that you have to organize the event. Or you could think about taking certain things out of the budget, things that you can do without and not compromise the theme of the event in its successful execution. Or in the event that there's no way you can take certain things out of the budget, and you're finding it difficult to obtain additional resources from the project commissioner, or the event that you yourself are the project commissioner and are finding it difficult to get sponsorship and fundraising, it makes more sense to cancel the event or postpone it till a date where you can actually raise enough finances to fund the event. So where the sum required is open to negotiation or needs to be secured, you have the imperative to develop a budget looking at similar events that have been organized like yours or what you are trying to organize. And then once you are able to see the kind of items that go into the budget and the relative costs in total, you can be able to say, okay, based on the benchmarking I did and how much I think will go into events similar to mine, this is the figure I have come up with that the event can cost. And that way you know how to go to the negotiating table with the commissioner of the event or whoever your sponsor is. Because some sponsors will tell you that, okay, I can't tell you the amount of money I'm giving you, but I need to see your budget so that I can tell you what I can do within your budget. Perhaps I can fund the whole thing, or I can tell you the part of the budget that I can take care of. So with the budget that you have done based on similar events, you can to a large extent determine the kind of logistics that will go into organizing the event. And you can cluster the key elements and highlight the main cost centers to be able to know how much resources you would need to be able to offset these costs. And then perhaps if you are thinking of making some income, earn enough income from the event. Because I know a lot of organizations and individuals who organize events and they end up even earning more for themselves than they put into the event. So in the events that the sum that you require is up for negotiation or has not been secured yet, preparing a budget can help you to have a fair idea of what figure to take to the negotiating table, or perhaps what figure to go in search of to make sure that the event will be organized successfully. So once you are able to clear the stakeholder review, organize your logistics, and think about your finances, you get to the final stage of the design lens, which involves the consolidation of all the key elements to come up with what we call an event concept. So in your event concept, you will tell us about the theme that you have in mind, the purpose of the theme, the success factors, the concept testing that you have done, how you have gone about doing your stakeholder review to see who matters, who has a stake, and who does not, to tell us about how the logistics are going to play out, and then the amount of finances that you need. And these will come together to create what we call the event concept. So in essence, it reflects the creative idea that you have, rationalized through the processes of both the creative lens and the design lens, and then coming up with an event concept, which forms the basis of dialogue with all your potential partners and collaborators. So the event concept is put together into what we call an event proposal. And it is this proposal that you will shop around to different organizations, individuals, and institutions to try to obtain support and get partners to help you to see the event come through successfully. So all these things will be featured as part of what you are going to put together in what we call the event proposal. And that is your assignment that you are going to do after this topic. So what is the event proposal? The event proposal can take so many forms depending on who the event commissioner is. So I'm going to show you a sample of some event proposals for you to get a sense of what it looks like and how to go about it. Okay, so let's look at this first one. Please, can you see it?
Yes, please.
Good. So it says event partnership proposal between consortium of college and university media centers, and they've laid out the name of the other person. Now you can see that the proposal tells us the executive summary. So the executive summary basically summarizes everything that is in the proposal and tells it to us in a few words. So here they are saying that the purpose of this document is to propose that so and so act as the host school for the so and so fall conference to be held on the date that has been blurred out for the consortium of college and university media centers. And to host an event such as this will provide an opportunity to not only show off the campus, but to benchmark new technology implementation with other institutions. The host staff would also have an opportunity to interact directly with other institution representatives that perform similar roles during the campus tour. The only requirement is the CCUMC conference be held in October the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th week of the month. It is proposed that the campus tour take place on a Saturday, unless feasible on a Friday. So you realize that in the executive summary, we can see in a nutshell what the whole thing is about. The only thing they did not talk about perhaps is proposed finances, but they talk about logistics here. Can someone indicate one of the logistics that they talk about? Can someone indicate one of the logistics that they talk about? Remember in the logistics, we were talking about things like location, timing. Please, do we remember?
Yes.
Scale of the
Yes.
Good. So can anyone tell us the logistics in this?
So the location.
Okay. So where did they say the location should be?
Consortium of college and university media centers.
Good, good. Any other logistical thing that they talk about? Any other thing in terms of logistics? Any other thing in terms of logistics? Remember we said scale, location, timing.
I think October.
Good, good. They said it should be held in October, either the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here too, we can see another thing in terms of the creative lens. You can see the theme of the event, right? You can see the theme because they have come up with a clear purpose of the event. Can someone tell us the purpose of the event? What's the purpose of the event based on the executive summary that we are seeing? What's the purpose?
An opportunity to show off the campus.
Good, good. That's the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
That's the purpose. That's one of the, but there's another purpose. It's two-pronged. So one is to show off the campus and the other one is to do it.
The whole staff will have an opportunity to interact directly with other institution representatives.
Good. So that's another purpose. That's another purpose. Awesome. So you can see that this is the executive summary in general of what the entire document is about. So as you go down further, they break the whole thing down into the different sections of the creative and design process that we talked about. So they have a background where they discuss the entire idea, all about the idea, the institution that is organizing it. They even describe the event. Please, can we see it? So the event description is here. So it tells us about the purpose of the event, the success factors, right? Please, are you with me?
Yes, please.
Good. Good. So they tell us the purpose of the event, the success factors, right? And then they tested the concept a little bit by telling us when they think it will be feasible and all that. They give us a theme for the event. And then they now come and tell us specifically who is submitting the proposal. Please, can we see? So proposal submitted by, and then the name and title, right? And then once the proposal is accepted, the host institution will indicate that they have approved it or accepted it on such and such a date. And then each party can sign and indicate that they both agree to the proposal, and then the planning of the event can begin. Please, are we okay?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
So the event proposal is an important step. If the proposal is not approved, you cannot start planning. This doesn't make sense.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Let's look at another proposal. Okay, so this is another one. And this one, the boxes have actually been filled out. So with this event proposal, we can see that they give us the title of the event, right? And they tell us the venue and the time. And then who proposed the event, right? The idea generator, the one who created the event. And then the name of the agency that is going to be overseeing the planning and execution of the event. Then they go ahead to do an event description, to describe the event, what it is about, and then a statement of merit for the event, and then they also list a few requirements for the event. And then they give us the sub-events that will be taking place under the general event. Because you know some events take place over a period, sometimes a day or two, or even if it is one day, they do more than one activity as part of the event. So as part of this particular event, which is the costume jewelry fair, they have 3 separate events that are taking place on different days, all related to the costume jewelry fair. One is the inauguration of the event. The other one is the jewelry making workshop. And the other one is the workshop on various handicrafts based on the jewelry industry from foreign countries, right? So this is another example of an event proposal. Please, does it make sense?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let's look at another template. This is another event proposal template. And here it is owned by a particular organization who have created a standardized event proposal to be using for all the events that they organize. So they have said that this proposal must be submitted to so and so at least 10 working days in advance of the event date. Reservations for space will not be made until the proposal is submitted, reviewed, and approved. Once the proposal is submitted, so and so will contact you within 5 business days. All sections must be filled out as well as the space diagram pages. You may use additional pages if necessary. So this is their basic templates that they have given you, but you can add additional pages if you feel you have more to write. So this proposal is very detailed. First, they are asking the name of the sponsoring organization, because in this case, they are saying that they want to know who is paying for the event. And then they want the names, address, phone number, email, and student ID number of the authorized signer for that organization, who will take responsibility for making arrangements with the company. So I think this is an event proposal for students of a particular school. Because if student ID number is coming in, then perhaps they are trying to make the students take responsibility for whoever is coming to sponsor the event. And then they want to know who to hold responsible in case something for the event goes wrong. So the name, ID number, address, email address, and phone number of the student is put here. Then we can talk about the name of the co-sponsoring organization or department. So perhaps the Department of Marketing and Entrepreneurship is partnering with MTN Ghana to put on an event. So the name of the sponsoring organization will be MTN. And then the name and ID of the student perhaps may be the students of the Marketing Student Association of Ghana, of the University of Ghana. So his details will come here. And then the name of the co-sponsoring organization or department perhaps will be the Department of Marketing and Entrepreneurship. Then the date of the event comes, the title of the event, the purpose of the event, and then the detailed description of the proposed activities for each space being requested. So here they are asking for space from the university to put on the event, right? And they have to provide specific details of the event and how it is going to play out, including whether or not there will be amplified sound. Because in the University of Ghana, for instance, when you want to have a student event, there's a specific time that you can organize it during which you can't play any music. So if it is between the morning from 9 a.m. to about 5 p.m., you can't play any music during the event because it is deemed that it's working hours and people are at lectures. But if the event is after 5, then you can play all manner of loud music and it will not be a problem because it is after working hours. So here you have to indicate if you need amplified sound. And you have to provide the names of any or all of the speakers who are participating in the event. And then you have to indicate whether you are requesting for the university to provide you with security. And then you have to indicate the start and ending time of the event, the setup and cleanup timeline and procedures. Because usually for events that are held on university premises, you need to make sure that you clean up after the event so that when people come to work the next day, they will not be met with an unsightly premises that is dirty and they will not be conducive enough for work. And then you also have to indicate the estimated number of participants and or the size of the anticipated audience. And then the ticket prices, if applicable, right? And then you have to indicate whether food or beverage will be sold or served. If so, would it be prepared foods or you will barbecue on site? Because all these things come with their own levels of risk, right? You also have to talk about the equipment to be used. Will you be using tables, chairs, canopies, risers, PA systems, right? And you should include whether or not the equipment will be ordered through the Student Center and Event Services or the sponsoring organization will provide, right? And again, you have to indicate whether vendors will be part of this event because vendors will need space. So it means that if vendors will be part, there will be extra canopies, extra tables, extra chairs, and there will be an extra number of people, right? And then you have to include any additional information about your event not directly requested above. So in case there's something that you will need to ensure that the event is smoothly organized that is not indicated above, you get the opportunity to include it in this section or perhaps in an additional document. Now listen to the caveats that they put at the end of it. It said the event should not be advertised or promoted until the proposal has been reviewed, accepted, and reserved, as approval is not guaranteed. So here they are saying that they can decide to say no to the event or say yes. And space assignment will be based on the actual footprint of the event. sometimes in the University of Ghana, there are events that are limited to the premises of the halls of residence, especially when it is a hall event. If it is a school event, it may be limited to the premises of the school. Most of the UGBS events are either had at a new graduate campus where we have a lot of space, or if it's held on the main campus, we are limited to the confines of around the business school and then behind our school at the executive square. They're also saying that event requests will be reviewed and the student center and event services will determine approval. So technically, even if you are not getting your tables and chairs and other items from student center and event services, ultimately they still have to approve your events by saying yes or no to it being organized, right? And then if the UCI police, in this case, I think UCI is the academic institution. So the police department on the university campus is referred to as the UCI police department. In our case, it will be university security. So let's say it's the University of Ghana, and we are saying if university security determines that special security is required, it will be at the expense of the sponsoring organization. So the university is saying that they will not pay for extra security. If you will need extra security apart from university security, your sponsors have to pay for it, or you have to pay for it yourselves. And they are saying the sponsoring organization will be required to provide additional permits for food, alcohol, and vendors. In Ghana here, it is a bit rare for you to require permits to sell food or alcohol at an event. On campus, for instance, when they have the whole week celebrations, the vendors come and sell all kinds of things. I don't think they require permits to do so. But for the amplified sound, you do need approval from the university. In fact, you need approval from the Dean of Students of the University of Ghana before you can use any form of amplified sound, be it during the daytime or in the evening. Insurance may also be required based on the type of event that you are planning. So some events, by nature of the risk that they come with, you have to go and obtain insurance for. And if vendors are part of the event, additional insurance from vendors will also be required. Like I said, most of the events I know of in the University of Ghana and then in Ghana here, rarely do they take insurance for them. I don't know if anybody knows of any events that they organize in Ghana that they go for insurance. Does anyone know of any such events?
No, please.
Yeah, most of the events that they organize in Ghana, they don't take insurance for. And again, for this event proposal that they are putting out, the other caveat is that the student center and event services reserve the right to adjust the volume at events and move equipment if it is outside the reserved area or poses any safety risks. And then submission of this proposal constitutes acknowledgement that the information provided in this document is true and you will abide by it. So please, do you see how detailed an event proposal can be?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So we have seen a very short and simple one, and we have seen a very detailed one, right? So I'm going to put a sample for an event, a sample of an event proposal into our Google Drive, and that is the assignment that you are going to do. So these are the details of your assignment. You are going to come up with an idea for an event. It can be a student event, it can be a general event, it can be whichever event, but it has to be filled within the confines of the proposal that I'm going to send you. And it has to be creative enough such that the idea can be sold to anybody and it can be organized as an event. Now, you have to put together the proposal bearing in mind the things that we have discussed in this lecture in terms of idea generation, creating and designing events. Please, are you with me?
Yes, please.
Good. And it will be due before our next lecture. When is our next lecture?
Sunday.
You are just filling a template. So you have the whole day to be creative and consult whoever you want to consult. So I'll put a template in our Google Drive by Saturday morning. So you can go ahead and so you have to think of something creative. For instance, me, there's an event I've always been wanting to organize, and it is I wanted to do it for the UGBS faculty, and I was going to call it UGBS Faculty Night. The purpose why I wanted to do that was because UGBS faculty take themselves very seriously. They are always working. So I thought, why not organize one night every year where the UGBS faculty can just show up and relax and have fun and engage with each other and chat and dance and eat and drink and then make merry. So that is an event that I would want to organize in the future, the UGBS faculty night. You get to dress up. It will be a strictly formal affair. You can wear your tie and like dress up and come and have fun. So that is my idea for an event. So it's not something difficult that you can't come up with something. It can also be an upgrade of an existing event. Remember the different types of ideas that we talked about on the idea generation? Please do remember.
Yes, please.
Good. So it can be an original idea, something that nobody has done. It can be an upgrade of an existing event or an idea, or it can be something that someone commissioned. In this case, we don't have anyone to commission. So it can either be an original idea or something that already exists that you are upgrading and making it fresh. Please, are we okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. So that is your assignment. It is due before our next lecture. So before the lecture starts, all the assignments have to be submitted. And please, you have to do it through Sakai. So those who are not on Sakai, kindly make sure you get onto our Sakai platform. Hey, who is not on Sakai?
Madam Patricia.
It's only Patricia, eh?
Yes.
Patricia, you still haven't been able to sort it out.
They are still working on it, Doctor.
Okay. So for you, you can email yours to me.
Okay.
But all us, the rest of us, we are on Sakai, so we have to submit our assignment to Sakai. So I'll make sure I get the template into our Google Drive by Saturday morning. And then you can put together your idea. So start racking your brain. Start thinking creatively. I want to see how ingenious you can become, how quick-witted you are to think on your feet and come up with a smart event idea that we can implement to create something unique. So on that note, we've come to the end of our lecture. Please, does anyone have anything they want to ask, anything they need clarification on? Now, Momo, is everything clear? Ruth, is everything clear?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Joanne, everything is clear, right? Gloria, we are good?
Yes, please.
Awesome.
Yes, please.
Awesome.
Good.
Awesome. So please, if anyone needs any clarification, please, I'm just a WhatsApp away. You can WhatsApp me, you can give me a call, and then we'll figure it out. So I wish you a lovely evening. God bless you all. See you, God willing.
Bless you more.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, dog.
Bye.
Good night, dog. Bye.
Don't sleep.